All power exercised over a nation must have some type of beginning. It is either delegated or it is assumed. There are no other sources. All delegated power is trust, and all assumed power is usurpation. Time does not alter the nature and quality of either. Listen to what Thomas Paine is saying. At the end of the day, a government exercises power from one of two ways. It is either a matter of trust, it's delegated, or it is assumed. And if it is assumed power, then it is an usurpation, and it very well could be a tyranny. Sam Adams, this dude was a legend in his own time. Man, he was so hated by the British government that they would be willing to offer anybody a pardon except for him and old John Hancock. Hear what Sam Adams said in an article that he wrote back in 1776 on the 3rd of February, which happens to be my son's birthday, not the 1776 part. Dependence of one man or state upon another is either absolute or limited by some certain terms of agreement. That agreement, and you can go on and read this. I would challenge and encourage you to read the whole article. But I'll leave this here. You can pause it and read the whole thing. We're going to look at the Constitution, but before we do, let's consider a quote by the father of the Constitution, James Madison. Madison, of course, was a Federalist. He wrote the Constitution. He was in favor for it. And the Federalists wrote a series of papers arguing why the Constitution should be ratified. Primary audience was just a couple states, right, that they had to win over. Arguing against them were the anti-Federalists, and they had some very deep and serious grave concerns, one of which was what the federal government was going to have the power to be able to do. And here James Madison says this, that the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined, and that those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. What the federal government can do is very limited. There are only a few things that the federal government has the right, the delegated right, in order to exercise. They don't have carte blanche authority to do whatever it is that they want to do. Once they step outside of what is clearly defined, you find an usurpation. And so what James Madison here was arguing, he was arguing against the people who said the Constitution gives too much power to the federal government, gives too much power to the President of the United States, gives too much power to the legislature. And James Madison said, hey guys, man, I hear you, but if it is not clearly articulated in the enumerated powers in the Constitution, you don't have to worry about it. We don't have to say that the government can't infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms. Again, James Madison, he didn't want the Bill of Rights. Neither did Hamilton and any of the other Federalists. He said you don't have to worry about that because it's not in the Constitution saying that the federal government can infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms. Right? If it wasn't for those anti-federalists, by the way, we would not have a Bill of Rights. But what does the Constitution say? What are these few and limited powers? Article 1, Section 8. I always get a chuckle to know that the legislative branch's powers are in Section 8 because I think of housing, right? Section 8 housing. It's kind of jacked up, as is the legislature. So Article 1, Section 8 says that the legislative branch can lay and collect taxes, impose and excises, think tariffs, by the way, when you read all that, to pay debts, provide for the common defense and general welfare, borrow money, regulate commerce, establish rules for naturalization, bankruptcies, coin money, establish post offices, issue and protect patents, conduct tribunals, deal with piracy, declaring war, raising and supporting the Army and the Navy, and calling forth the militia. That's it. It does go on to say that to make laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into the execution of the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof, right? But that's it. And you'll notice that most of these powers have to do with the purse, right? It was one of the arguments against the Confederation, right? That they didn't have enough power, the federal government didn't have enough power as it related to currency. And so they put that in here into the Constitution, saying we need a constitutional government to have these powers. Otherwise, we're going to be weak and we're going to be subject to outside influence that will tear us apart. And so that's why there are so many specific enumerated powers as it relates to money. But if you scratch those away, what else do we have? Common defense, general welfare, post offices, support the Army and the Navy financially, declaring war. That's it. How much of what the federal government is into on a daily basis, when you look at all of the departments, fall in line with one of these enumerated powers? Kind of hard to make the dots connect, isn't it? Well, you need a license to talk on a radio. I don't know which. Well, we can make it somehow connect. Playing loose. Even James Madison, I don't think, would be all too happy. Article 2, Section 2 of 3 of the executive branch, dealing with the commander-in-chief, has the power for reprieves and pardons, to make treaties, appoint ambassadors, as well as all the other public officials, especially for all those departments, which, by the way, we didn't start off with a bunch of departments. It was only a couple. To provide a State of the Union, and then to convene and adjourn Congress. Article 3, Section 2, the judicial powers, very limited, but judicial powers are extended to all cases arising under the Constitution, laws of the United States, treaties, and any controversy that arises between an individual, a citizen, and the state, between a citizen and the federal government, between the state and the federal government, or between any of those and an outside entity or foreign state. That's what the judicial powers have or are encapsulated by, right? That's literally their job. It's not their job to fall in line. It's their job to look at the Constitution and any controversy and deal a judgment or render a judgment. Now, I highlighted the necessary and proper clause because this is one of the things that just chews at me at the back of my neck. I just, gosh dang it, irritates me so much, as well as common very vague statements like common defense and general welfare. These three statements are so vague, and people use them to create ways of exercising power that is not directly delegated, which is what? It's an usurpation. But notice that they can only create laws for the execution of the foregoing powers and any other power that's in the Constitution. It has to be direct and well defined, right? There are few powers, not all the powers. All the powers are the states, right? Isn't that what James Madison said? So what else does the Constitution say in Article 4? Full faith and credit given to each state. Privileges citizenship, deals with if you're charged in one state and you're in another, who has jurisdiction. Admission of new states, guaranteeing a Republican form of government. Article 5, proposing amendments. Article 6, honoring debts that were incurred before the Constitution. All laws and treaties being made supreme law, right? A federal law is supreme law. This was another sticking point for those old revolutionaries. And that officials are bound by oath, but there cannot be a religious test. So only the foregoing powers and then all of these does the judicial branch have the authority, the delegated authority, to make legislation, to make a law. Only in these can a government department make a code. Right? Codes are not law, but they can't make a code if it's not in one of these enumerated powers. Anything else that's outside of that is an usurpation, or it is a form of tyranny. Here's what John Locke had to say in the two treatises of civil government all the way back in 1689. And as usurpation is the exercise of power which another has the right to, tyranny is the exercise of power which nobody has a right to, right? Comparing and contrasting what usurpation is and tyranny. Usurpation is me doing something that you have the authority or the power to. Tyranny is doing something that nobody has the authority or the power to do. We're not just talking about a simple majority. We're not talking about a mob rule democracy. We're talking about a republican form of government. So what we have ultimately are a bunch of just a snippet, a glimpse into many of our founding fathers' views of the limited role of government, and that anytime a government exceeds those delegated powers, you have ultimately one of two things: an usurpation or treason. Indignation is burning. Team, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments down below about the nature and the role of government and the powers that it has, and if it is acting outside those delegated powers and is truly operating in usurpation or in treason. And then finally, of course, what the hell do we do about it? Team, I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked. Team, if you want to master your craft and develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date with future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.
We know you're out there! Come to my voice!